You don't remember how you found the house. It wasn't on any map. It wasn't along the highway or down a dirt road. You just arrived in the hush between one thought and the next. A crooked gate clicked shut behind you, and before you could say, "This isn't where I was going," the house had already welcomed you in. It wasn't loud about it. It didn't slam its shutters or creak its floors. No, this house was polite. That's what made it worse. The rooms were quiet, too quiet, the way a body is quiet after all the warmth has left. Wallpaper peeled in slow curls, like it was trying to whisper something, but hadn't figured out the right words yet. The air was still, as though it had been holding its breath for years, waiting for someone just like you. You told yourself you'd stay one night, and then you'd leave. But in the morning, your car wouldn't start. Your phone couldn't find a signal. The forest outside looked unfamiliar, like it had grown thicker, closer, hungrier. So you stayed another night, and the house was pleased. It started offering you things. A warm cup of tea left on the windowsill, steam rising even though you'd never seen who made it. A blanket folded neatly at the foot of the bed you don't remember climbing into. A lullaby hummed softly through the vents, just out of tune enough to make your teeth itch. By the third night, the mirrors started lying. You'd smile, they wouldn't. You'd blink, they wouldn't. And one morning, your reflection moved just a little too slowly, a beat behind, watching you as you turned away. You tried to leave after that. You packed a bag. You didn't even look back. But the woods twisted around you like roots remembering. Every path curved in on itself. You walked for hours and ended up at the front steps again, the door swinging gently open like it had missed you. You live there now. You don't remember when it became home, but it did. The walls breathe with you. The floorboards mimic your footsteps even when you're standing still. You hum that strange lullaby without realizing it. And if you're very quiet when you're almost asleep, you might hear it. A creak on the stairs, a breath beside your bed, a whisper from the closet. Not words, just the sound of something old, waiting and patient. Always so very, very patient. The sound of the hum stopped the moment Leah stepped inside. It wasn't sudden. It faded like breath being held. She hesitated on the threshold, one foot still outside, the other already pressing against the faded rug just past the doorway. The inside smelled faintly of dust, pine, and old lavender. Not rotting, not mildewed, but ancient. The door whispered shut behind her. She didn't touch it. "Hello?" She tried again, louder now. "Is someone here?" No footsteps, no echo. Only the faint sound of something like a clock ticking far, far away. The foyer opened into a wide hall with faded wallpaper, the kind with tiny roses and yellowing glue. A staircase curved gently upward to the left, while a hallway stretched into darkness to the right. Straight ahead, a living room dimly lit by the last rays of dusk, leaking in through gauzy curtains. An armchair sat there, facing the empty fireplace. There was a teacup on a saucer beside it, steam still curling from the rim. That made her stop. "Okay," she muttered, "that's fresh." She approached the chair slowly, half expecting someone to rise from it, but it was empty. The teacup was real. It smelled faintly of Earl Grey and something else, clove maybe. She looked around. The place was lived in. That was the strange part. Despite the peeling wallpaper and occasional cobweb, the space had an order to it. The floor was swept. The bookshelf was alphabetized. The curtains had been drawn with care. And still, no sound, no presence, no one. Leah's phone vibrated weakly in her pocket. She grabbed it like a lifeline. No signal. Of course not. The battery read 11%. The time, 7:13 p.m. With a frustrated sigh, she turned to leave, only to find the door was no longer behind her. It should have been. She hadn't walked far. But in its place was only more hallway now. The wallpaper here, a darker red, almost rust-colored. A single framed portrait hung on the wall, a woman, unsmiling, in a high-collared dress, eyes pale and watchful. Leah froze, breath catching painfully in her throat. The voice hadn't been in her head. It had breathed against the back of her neck, warm and real. She looked around. Still no one. The hallway behind her stretched impossibly far, its dimensions now altered. The entryway was gone. The only door nearby was the one at the end of the hallway beneath the dim flicker of a wall sconce. It hadn't been lit before. With cautious steps, she moved toward it. The wallpaper here was textured now, embossed with faint symbols she didn't recognize. Circles nested in triangles, interwoven with curling vines. As she passed, the patterns seemed to shift, not visibly, but in that way where you look away and then realize it's not where you thought it was. She stopped in front of the door. Its handle was brass and cold to the touch. When she opened it, the hinges groaned like something waking up. The room beyond was a sitting room, at least at first glance. Dust floated thick in the air, glinting in the light of a single oil lamp on a side table. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled with leather-bound volumes. A velvet couch sat beneath a portrait of the same pale-eyed woman, only this time her mouth was open just slightly. Smiling. Leah turned to leave, and the door was gone again. Just bare wall. "Okay, nope," she whispered, heart hammering. She spun around, searching for any other exit, and spotted something new. A young woman standing in the corner, long hair, thin limbs, eyes wide and too white, like they'd been scrubbed of color. "Who are you?" Leah asked. The woman didn't answer. She opened her mouth slowly, her lips moved. No sound came out. Leah took a step forward. "Are you trapped here? Do you need help?" The woman's mouth kept moving, then stopped. Then, she pointed. To the bookshelf. Leah turned. Rows of books, all with titles embossed in gold, but one stood out. No title, just her name. Leah Monroe. Her hands trembled as she reached for it. Before her fingers touched the spine, the air snapped. The oil lamp guttered and died. When light returned, only for a second, the girl was gone. And the bookshelf? The book with Leah's name was open now, to the final page. It read. She tried to leave. She tried so many times, but the house already knew her name, and it had written. Leah stared at the open book, the final line trembling faintly as if the letters were still settling into the page. Her breath hitched as she reached for it. Part of her expected it to burn her fingers. It didn't. The cover felt like smooth leather, aged but solid. She flipped backward through the pages. The entries were handwritten, every single one, in the same ink, the same elegant script. It wasn't hers, not technically, but the entries described her. She didn't sleep well last night. The dreams were back, crows and water that didn't end. She used to talk to herself in the car to fill the silence, but today she only listened. She passed the fox at 7:12 p.m. It wasn't a fox. Her mouth went dry. "No one knows that," she whispered. A sound stirred behind her, the whisper of a page turning, but the book was still in her hands. No, it was coming from another book. A second shelf, higher up, was vibrating slightly. The wood thumped. Another volume slowly slid forward. Leah stepped back. One by one, books began to shift. Titles emerged. Eleanor Fielding, Thomas J. Gale, Isabel Rowan, Jonas Kent, dozens, hundreds, all names. She turned around. The girl from before was back, just a little closer now. "You're part of the house now," she said quietly. This time, the words came through. "What is this place?" Leah demanded. "What's happening to me?" The girl blinked slowly, her head tilting like she hadn't been asked that in a long, long time. She opened her mouth, but instead of words, a thick, rattling breath emerged, like air forced through lungs that had forgotten how to function. "The house remembers everyone," she finally said. "If you stay too long, it writes you down. It keeps you, like a collection." "No, I'm not staying," Leah insisted. I came in by accident. I can leave. I'll leave now." The girl stepped aside and pointed. A door had reappeared. Leah ran to it, flung it open. Behind it was only the same sitting room again, but the furniture was subtly different, rearranged, dust disturbed. The book now sat closed on the table, like someone else had been reading it and had just gotten up. Leah shut the door behind her and leaned against it, chest rising and falling in shallow bursts. Her thoughts twisted, overlapped, repeated. Get out now. Don't let it keep you." But the room ahead was no longer the same. It had changed again. The sitting room was gone. In its place stood a narrow corridor lined with mirrors, each one tall and ornate, framed in tarnished silver. The glass was fogged, aged to a bluish hue. The carpet beneath her feet was threadbare and dark, like dried blood woven into velvet. The mirrors reflected her, but wrong. In the one to her left, she was smiling faintly, though her real lips were tight with fear. In the right-hand mirror, her eyes blinked too slowly. In another, farther down the hall. Her hair hung damp and limp, like she'd just climbed out of a river. "God," she whispered, shuddering. She took a cautious step forward. The mirrors did not shatter or distort. They simply watched. At the end of the corridor was a single wooden door, and in front of it, standing completely still, was a man. He wore a black coat that brushed the floor. His hands were pale and too long, folded neatly in front of him. His face was wrong, not grotesque, just unfinished, as though it had been drawn in pencil and left incomplete. He had eyes, but no color in them, lips, but they never moved. "Who are you?" Leah asked. The man tilted his head slowly, like a puppet unsure of its strings. "I want to leave," she continued. "This house. I didn't mean to come here. You have to let me go." The man lifted one hand. With his long finger, he pointed to a mirror on the left. This one was different. It didn't show her. It showed a front door. Open. Sunlight beyond. The forest, familiar and green. Her car. Freedom. She gasped, ran to it, pressed her hands against the glass. "Is this real?" she asked. The man didn't answer, but her reflection did. In a flat, toneless version of her voice, "You can go, but you'll come back. Everyone does." The mirror shuddered, then cracked down the middle. Not broken, just fractured. The door in the image remained open, just barely, but the crack cut through it like a scar. Leah turned to the man. "Why me?" she whispered. His mouth parted for the first time. "You were alone when you found the road," he said. "That's all it takes." She stumbled backward from the man and the mirror, breath catching in her throat. His words echoed in her skull. "That's all it takes." A chill slipped down her spine like a trickle of cold water. She looked back at the cracked mirror showing her escape. She wanted to dive through it, claw her way out, scream if she had to. But it wasn't a door, just glass, just a lie. "I'm not staying," she whispered. The man didn't respond. He simply turned and walked backward through the wooden door at the end of the corridor, without opening it. The wood seemed to ripple, swallowing him whole like water folding over a stone. And then the door creaked open on its own. Leah didn't want to follow him, but there was no other path. Behind her, the corridor had changed. It was no longer lined with mirrors. The hallway simply ended in a blank wall, the texture of old skin. So she stepped through. The room beyond was wrong. It was shaped like a child's bedroom, but stretched and warped, like a memory retold too many times. A small, iron-framed bed stood at the center, its mattress covered with neatly tucked sheets that bore tiny stitched suns and moons. Toys lay scattered around, a porcelain doll with one eye, a jack-in-the-box with a handle that turned on its own, slowly creaking clockwise. The walls pulsed faintly, alive, breathing. There was a single window, but it looked out onto nothing, just blackness, like the house floated in a void. Leah crossed to it. She knocked. The glass was warm. Behind her, a faint creaking began. She turned. The jack-in-the-box was moving. The handle cranked once, twice, click, click. A broken tune began to tinkle out, warped and sluggish. She backed away. Her hand brushed something soft. The bed. Someone was lying under the covers now. Her mouth went dry. "No," she whispered. The shape didn't move. It was small, child-sized. A deep, guttural rattling came from beneath the blanket. Not breathing, something pretending to breathe. She inched forward, compelled despite herself, reached trembling fingers toward the blanket's edge. A voice behind her whispered, "If you see its face, it becomes yours." She turned. The man again. This time he stood in the corner, watching, waiting. Leah dropped her hand. Her knees almost buckled. "I want to leave," she said again, hoarse. The man tilted his head once more. "You've already begun to forget where you came from." And then the shape in the bed giggled. The sound was soft, muffled through layers of fabric, but unmistakable. A child's giggle, high and breathy, like the noise children make when they're hiding, when they think you haven't found them yet. Leah stumbled back from the bed, her eyes wide, heart galloping. "No," she whispered. "No, that wasn't—" The giggle came again. The blankets shifted. A small, round hand emerged from beneath the sheet. It reached toward her. Pale, with fingers too long, joints too many. Leah screamed and turned toward the man in the corner, but he was gone again. The place where he stood was now just wallpaper, patterned with crescent moons and thorny vines. "Get me out of here," she muttered, backing toward the window. "Get me out of here. Get me out." The bed moved. Not just the blankets. The entire bed lurched, dragging itself an inch closer to her. The metal frame scraped the floor with a horrible squeal. Leah bolted for the door. It had no knob. She struck it with both hands. "Open! Open!" Behind her, the jack-in-the-box wound faster, click, tick, tick, click, until it popped open. A grotesque thing sprang out. Not a clown, not a doll. Something wooden and painted, with a mouth filled with human teeth and two eyes that rolled loosely in its head. It didn't move, but it stared at her. "It's only a room," she told herself. "It's not real. It's just the house playing tricks. It can't—" A voice replied. Not hers, not the man's. High, clear, young. "Everything's real once the house dreams it." The window behind her shattered outward, not from her touch, but as though something had thrown itself at it from the outside. Shards of glass flew across the room. And beyond the window, instead of forest or stars, she saw a field. Dozens, no, hundreds of empty houses stretching into mist. Some had lights flickering behind the windows. Some looked abandoned. Others had figures standing in the doorways, staring blankly into space. Every one of them was identical to this one. "Which one's mine?" she whispered. "Whichever one remembers you best," came the answer. It didn't come from the bed or the toy. It came from inside her mouth. Leah's hands flew to her mouth. The words still echoed in her skull, "Whichever one remembers you best." But they hadn't been spoken aloud. Not really. She had felt them behind her teeth, vibrating like a held scream, waiting to come out again. She backed away from the shattered window, glass crunching beneath her boots. The room had quieted. The giggle under the sheets was gone. The jack-in-the-box sat still again, its horrific toy now lifeless. The bed, the toys, even the walls looked emptier somehow, like a stage after the actors have left. She turned, and the door was open, not a crack, wide. Leah hesitated only a second before running through it, breath heaving in her chest. She had no plan, no map, just the thought, "Move, get away, don't stop." The corridor outside twisted into a stairwell that spiraled downward, far too long for a two-story house. As she descended, the lights above her fizzled and died, one by one. Darkness fell like a slow curtain. Halfway down, she saw them. Portraits, lining the walls of the stairwell. Each one bore a name beneath it, painted on a brass plate. Eleanor Fielding, Jonas Kent, Isabel Rowan. Names she'd seen in the books. Their faces weren't frozen in paint, they shifted, slowly, blinking, smiling faintly. She reached her own portrait halfway down. Her breath hitched. It looked like her, but older, pale, tired. Her eyes held a kind of weary knowing, like she had seen everything the house could offer and had stopped running long ago. The plate beneath it shimmered as she stared. Leah Monroe, resident. "No," she whispered. "Not me. Not yet." She ran faster. The stairs ended abruptly in a heavy wooden door. She pushed it open and found herself in a kitchen. Normal, rustic. An old stove, copper pans, a bowl of apples on the table, fresh, glistening red. It could have been someone's grandmother's house, except for one detail. There were no shadows. Every object was lit evenly, as if no light source existed at all, just flat, sourceless illumination. Leah stepped inside. The floor creaked behind her. She turned. A man stood there. But not the man. This one wore Leah's face. His eyes were black from corner to corner. Leah staggered backward, eyes locked on the thing wearing her face. It smiled wider, too wide, until the skin at the corners of its mouth cracked faintly, revealing a line of deep crimson beneath. It stepped into the kitchen like it belonged there, its movements jerky but precise, like an actor taught choreography in a language they didn't understand. "I'm not you," Leah whispered. The thing cocked its head, mimicking the gesture she'd made countless times in confusion. "No," it said. "Not yet. But the house is patient." It walked toward her slowly, bare feet thudding softly against the floorboards. Leah backed into the kitchen table, her hand knocking over the bowl of apples. They didn't fall. They just hung there in the air, perfectly still, spinning slowly. The kitchen began to hum, low, electric, vibrating through her ribs. The thing leaned close, its nose inches from hers. Its breath was hot, syrupy sweet. "Would you like to see how it ends?" "No." Leah turned her face away, trying to hold the thought together. This isn't real, I'm still me. But the thing reached up and pressed a single finger to her forehead, and the kitchen vanished. She stood now in a room without walls, a white void, endless and soft. Pages floated in the air, thousands of them, maybe more. All were covered in handwriting, some neat, some jagged and wild. She spun around, trying to make sense of it. From the blankness, voices began to whisper. She used to love the cold until it reminded her of this place. The mirror showed her only what she feared. She would forget her own name soon enough. Pages drifted toward her, gently brushing her arms, her face. They smelled like dust and candle smoke. She tried to scream, but her mouth was filled with paper. Choking, she clawed at it, tore pages from her throat. When they hit the ground, they bled ink. The letters crawled along the floor like insects, pooling into words that rearranged themselves again and again. Leah is, Leah was, Leah will be. and then all the pages dropped, fluttering down at once. She stood in a hallway again, but this one was clean, modern, hospital white. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell was antiseptic. Doors lined both sides, each labeled only with a date. One door said July 18, 2011. Another, February 4, 2023. Another, today. Leah reached for it. The hallway breathed. The moths fluttered around her, wings whispering as they flew, each bearing names too small to read, except one, her own, Leah Monroe. She caught the moth mid-air, cupping it gently in her hands. It was still obedient. Its wings ticked against her palm like a ticking watch. She looked at it, whispered, "I'm not just ink. I'm not paper. I'm not this." The room around her didn't answer with thunder or screams. It sighed, as though disappointed. Her double still knelt across from her, smiling like a doll. "You're catching on," it said. Leah looked up. "What am I?" The double's mouth opened wider, unhinging slowly. A sound emerged, not a voice, but the turning of pages. Thousands of pages, fast, unstoppable. Each one turned not by hand, but by something vast, invisible, ancient. The room dimmed. The TV screen melted into darkness, showing a wall of static text. She walks. She knocks. She forgets. She knocks. She forgets. She walks. The story folds. It always folds. Suddenly, the floor beneath her trembled. A crack ran through the carpet, splitting it. Beneath it, wood. Beneath the wood, something darker. The house was peeling itself open, and from below a voice rose, not spoken, written in sound. "Would you like to meet who wrote you?" Leah stood. "Yes," she said. The walls folded inward, the furniture flattened into paper. Her double shriveled and crumbled into a stack of old yellowed pages. The entire room was collapsing into itself, into a tunnel of pages, ink, lightless voids, and somewhere deeper, breathing. She stepped forward into the hole. She fell, down, 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 between the margins of the world. And then she landed softly, like paper settling on a desk. The room was small, lined floor to ceiling with books. The only light came from a single candle burning at a wooden desk. Someone sat there, writing. The figure was featureless, shadow. Leah stared at the word begin, as if it might speak back. The book in her hands had a weight that wasn't physical. It felt full of decisions not yet made. Her fingers trembled as she turned the first page. Blank. Then another. Blank. Hundreds of them stretching forward into the unknown. Behind her, the author watched silently quill hovering, as if daring her to fail. "I can write my way out," she whispered. "I can rewrite the ending." The author inclined its paper face, quotation mark eyes glinting in the candlelight. "You can write anything, Leah Monroe, but the house remembers. Every word you change must be paid for." Leah swallowed hard. "What do I pay with?" "Memory," the author said simply. "Truth, the shape of who you are." Leah looked again at the book. What did she really remember anymore? Her apartment? Her sister's voice? The scent of her shampoo? The cold weight of loneliness? These things floated through her mind now like leaves on water, blurred, disjointed. If she rewrote too much, would there be anything of her left? She took the quill from the desk. It felt alive. It vibrated softly, eager. She dipped it in the inkwell beside the candle. Black ink, but as she began to write, the ink changed color, turning red as it met the page. Blood-red words, scarring the paper. Leah found the door again, and this time it led outside. The candle flared. The room trembled. The author's hand flexed in disapproval, but it did not stop her. She kept going. She remembered the sky, not gray, not storming, but blue, aching, perfect blue. A crack split across the floorboards. Wind howled into the tiny room. Pages from the shelves blew free, swirling in a cyclone of forgotten stories. Leah laughed, actually laughed, as she wrote faster. "I am writing it! I'm changing it!" But then the ink ran dry. No matter how she dipped the quill, the blood-red hue wouldn't return. The nib scratched uselessly against the parchment. The author stood slowly. Its mouth opened, not in speech, but in a scream of pages. Thousands of shrieking voices howling from every wall, every crack. "You wrote without finishing," it thundered, "and the house hates half-told tales." Leah dropped the quill. The book closed itself with a loud snap, and across the cover, now etched in something darker than ink, appeared the title, "The One Who Tried to Escape Herself." The room was collapsing, not with flame or flood, but with forgetting. The walls peeled away like old wallpaper, revealing nothing underneath. Not blackness, not light, just absence. Like someone had erased the concept of room with a shaking hand. The author dissolved, its paper face unraveling into airborne pages, each shrieking a single word, "Return! Return! Return!" Leah stumbled back, clutching the book to her chest. The title, "The One Who Tried to Escape Herself," glowed faintly. The letters twitched, rewriting themselves when she blinked. The one who almost escaped. The one who forgot too much. The one who let the ending choose her. "No!" she shouted. "No! Rewrite it again!" She opened the book. Blank again. All her words gone. The wind in the room turned bitter cold. It howled with a mournful tone like a winter storm made from mourning and regret. Pages from other books were being ripped from the shelves, flying past her, brushing against her skin. Each one whispered her name in voices she didn't recognize. And then she saw them. The others. Figures flickering into shape in the disintegrating room. Men, women, children. All wearing versions of her face. Some with wide, frozen smiles, others weeping silently. One was crawling on the floor, clutching their head, repeating a broken phrase. The stairs were mouths, the doors were bones, the bed never stopped breathing. They were all her. Or other versions the house had kept. She turned and ran. Back into the hallway of dates, but now they were shifting. The dates melted into inkblots, unreadable. The doors closed one by one with wet sounds, as if sealing shut with flesh. Only one door remained open. It was labeled, "Your last page." Leah hesitated. The wind behind her grew louder, angrier. Voices roared like a chorus of dying stars. She ran toward the final door and flung herself through it. And silence. She stood in a copy of her apartment. Same lamp, same rug, same faint hum of the fridge in the other room. Only now, it was all gray, desaturated, as if someone had drained the world of hue. Her phone sat on the table. Its screen was on. A single text message glowed. "You made it out. Or did you?" Below it, a blinking cursor, waiting for her to reply. She reached for the phone. Her reflection stared back at her from the black glass, but her eyes were quotation marks. Leah stared at the blinking cursor on her phone screen. "You made it out? Or did you?" Her fingers hovered over the screen. She typed slowly. "Where am I?" Send. The response was instant. "Still reading." She felt the color drain from her skin. Her apartment remained silent, but the air had thickened, like a library where someone had just stopped whispering. The shadows were wrong, too. They didn't fall with the soft edges of light she remembered. They hugged the corners now, as if clinging, watching. Her phone buzzed again. "You don't get to stop on the last page. You have to live in it." "No," Leah muttered, stepping back. "No, I left the house." But her reflection in the dark window said otherwise. It didn't move when she did. It just stood there, staring. Then it smiled. Not cruelly, not kindly, just knowingly. Her phone vibrated again. This time it showed an image. A staircase. Familiar. Winding. Wood worn soft by too many footsteps. The staircase from the house. The message below. "Come downstairs, Leah." A new sound rose in her apartment, not from the phone, from the floor. A rhythmic thud, soft and wet, coming from the hallway near the bathroom. Step, drag. Step, drag. Leah didn't want to look, but she moved anyway, like a puppet with a thread wrapped around her spine. The hallway seemed longer than it should be. The lights above flickered faintly. When she reached the end, her hand moved to the doorknob of the bathroom and stopped. The door was breathing. In, out. Just barely, but enough. She turned the knob. Inside was not her bathroom. It was a stairwell. Stone walls, damp steps, a soft moaning wind curling up from below. Leah stepped back. No, I closed this chapter. I wrote my way out. But the book lay open on her living room table now, pages turning on their own, and each page bore a sentence. She kept going. She needed to know how it ends. She forgot she was the one writing. Behind her, the reflection in the window moved, but Leah hadn't. The reflection stepped away from the glass and toward her. The reflection crossed the room in total silence. No footsteps, no breath. It wasn't walking, it was sliding, like a memory unstuck from its frame. Leah backed toward the table where the book lay open, pages still riffling. She didn't dare look down. Each page whispered in her voice, growing louder. She didn't run. She faced herself, even if what she saw wasn't her anymore. The reflection stopped 5 feet from her. Now it looked exactly like her, but different. The skin was too smooth, like porcelain. The smile held no warmth, just compliance, a thing rehearsed, practiced, worn like a costume. Leah's voice was barely audible. Are you me? The double blinked slowly. I'm the Leah who stayed quiet, who didn't question, the one who let the house write the ending. It held up its hand. In its palm was a quill, the same one Leah had used, but it was withered now. The metal tip bent, no ink. There's still time to give it back, the double said. Let it finish your story. You won't have to wonder any more. No, Leah said, stepping back. I chose to write, even if I failed. The double tilted its head. Then write. Finish it. But you must know, every ending the house allows has a price. The pages behind her stopped turning, dead still. The book closed itself again. Now the cover read, The One Who Faced Her Author. Leah grabbed the book. The room around her shimmered. The table became a stone altar. The ceiling cracked open to black sky. Her apartment melted at the edges, curling into parchment. It had never been real. Just another room of the house, the final illusion. I see you, she whispered into the darkness above her, and I won't be rewritten. She opened the book one last time. Inside was a mirror. Not a page, a perfect round mirror, embedded in the parchment like a pool of silver. She looked down. Her reflection smiled. Only this time, it was hers. Hair wild, eyes terrified, but hers. She touched the surface, and her fingers sank into it. It wasn't glass. It was ink, pulling her in. The final page read, She became the pen. Not the story. She became the writer. Not the ghost. And then the house let out a sound, not pain, not hunger, but reluctant applause. Leah tumbled through the ink. It wasn't falling, not exactly, more like sinking into something deeper than gravity could reach. She passed through layers, rooms without walls, time without sequence. Voices fluttered around her like moths trapped in a bell jar. She wanted to know. She kept asking. She peeled back too many layers. Then impact, soft but final. She stood in a library, endless and impossible. Books lined every surface, walls, ceilings, even the floors, where they hovered inches above glowing symbols. Some books were whispering, others screamed in silence. All were titled with variations of her name. Leah, version 1, The Obedient Dreamer. Leah, draft 3, Refused the Door. Leah, Appendix 9, Consumed by Curiosity. She backed away, heart pounding. At the center of the room was a pedestal. Upon it sat a book bound in skin. Its cover bore no title, only a single wet eye embedded in the leather. It blinked once, slowly. Leah heard a voice, but not through her ears. It unfurled inside her head. You are not the first to write against the house. She turned. A figure sat in a floating chair woven from spider legs and clock hands. It wore a mask made from broken mirrors. She began, but the words died. I am what authors become when they lose their endings, it said, voice like fire crackling in reverse, when they dig too deep into meaning and find only the mechanism. The figure gestured to the library. Every failed Leah is catalogued here. Yours is not the worst, but it is the closest to escaping. Leah clenched her fists. I didn't come this far to be bound on a shelf. Then right, the mirror-masked thing said. But know this, authorship here is theft. You must take your fate from another's hands, and the house never forgets what it once held. The skin-bound book opened on its own. Inside, a single blank page. Her page. Leah stepped forward. She reached for the quill that appeared beside it, but the moment ink touched paper, the house screamed, not in pain, in rage, because someone had dared author themselves. The scream of the house vibrated through the library like a storm through bones. Shelves trembled, books flapped open, howling with ink-black wings. The floor cracked, revealing veins, yes, veins, pulsing beneath the tiles, as though the house itself had a living heart. Leah didn't flinch. She pressed the quill down. The ink bled red onto the page, but it wasn't from the inkwell, it was from her hand. The tip of the quill had vanished beneath her skin, drawing blood directly, line by line, letter by letter. This story is mine. I will not be written by fear. I will not end where they want me to. The book pulsed with every sentence, its eye blinking frantically, a tear of ink sliding from its lashless lid. Behind her, the mirror-masked figure stood. You write with truth, it said, voice now shaking, and that is what the house fears most. Why? Because truth can unmake a story. Suddenly the shelves groaned. One by one, books began to collapse into ash. Not burn, not fall, just erase. Leah turned to the pedestal, heart pounding. The page was changing. The words she had written began to spread outward across every surface of the library like cracks in porcelain, rewriting every story, every version of her. Even the names on the books began to flicker. Leah, the obedient dreamer, became Leah, the one who refused the ending. Leah, Draft 3 became Leah, the editor of fate. The mirror-masked being sank to its knees, hands clasped. You've broken the fourth narrative, it whispered. You've written outside the house. The ground beneath Leah's feet trembled, and from deep below came a new sound, a heartbeat, loud, wet, awake. Then, from above, ceiling torn like old paper, a face began to descend. Huge, unblinking, made of hundreds of mouths, all whispering the same line. If you write the truth, you must be ready to live with it. Leah stared up at it, quill dripping. I'm ready. The eye on the book closed for the last time, and the library collapsed into the scream of something older than fiction. There was no falling this time, no wind, no scream, no ink. Just silence, dense, velvet silence. The kind that feels like a weight pressed to the chest. Leah opened her eyes. She stood in a room smaller than any she had seen before. No doors, no windows. The walls were made of stitched-together book covers, each bearing a single word in a language that seemed alive, squirming when she looked at it too long. In the center was a cradle, old, splintered, rocking gently. She stepped toward it. Inside, nestled in yellowing blankets, was not a baby, but a pen, made of bone. Carved along its shaft were teeth marks, hundreds, as if something had tried to chew its story out through the pen itself. The moment she reached out, a voice filled the room, not loud but absolute. "This is where the house began." The walls pulsed gently, syncing with the rhythm of that deep, wet heartbeat she'd heard earlier. A presence, not behind her, not above her, but in her. Before there were rooms, there was a single truth. A writer must choose, suffer the story, or steal the pen. Leah took the bone pen. It was warm, and it hummed, not with magic, but with memory. Images seared into her head. A woman building the first room from grief. A child trapped in a hallway where time ran backwards. A man who tried to write his way out and was erased by his own punctuation. All stories born from pain, all housed here. She whispered, "Is this what the house is? A graveyard for stories that couldn't end?" "No," the voice replied, from nowhere and everywhere. "The house is what remains when endings are denied. It collects, it feeds, it waits." "And what am I now?" she asked. There was a long pause. Then, "You are the first room rewritten." Suddenly the cradle cracked. From within something moved, slithered. A long finger of ink reached up toward her heart. It didn't attack, it offered. A choice. To seal the house forever, or to open it to the world outside, to let others see what hides behind the walls of unfinished stories. The pen pulsed in her hand, and Leah made her choice. Leah held the bone pen tightly. The ink finger from the cradle trembled, waiting. Not pressuring, just present, patient. It didn't beg. It trusted she would understand the weight of what came next. Above her, the walls began to sigh, like they, too, had been holding their breath for centuries. "To seal the house," the voice intoned, "is to forget it, to let it rot in its own silence, to trap the truths inside forever. To open it is to infect the world with story." Leah stared at the pen. Her blood still marked the nib. But this was no longer about escape. It was about choice, real choice.
Authorship in its purest, most dangerous form.
She dipped the pen into her heart, not metaphorically. She pressed the nib into the space just above her sternum. And she wrote. Not on a page, not on a wall. She wrote on the air itself. "I choose truth. I choose pain, memory, voice, consequence. I choose to tell the story even if no one believes it." The cradle shuddered and split apart with a snap, revealing a staircase beneath it, spiraling downward into light. Light. Not the soft yellow of the illusion rooms, not the cruel white of interrogation dreams, but natural, fractured sunlight, through cracked shutters, real dust, real warmth. It was outside. She descended. Each step was a memory undone. The hallway vanished. The library burned clean. The mirror-masked author let out a laugh and faded. The inked eye in the book, it wept and turned to salt. And then Leah emerged. She stood in a ruined house, a real house, long abandoned, rotting walls, peeling wallpaper, a staircase crumbled with age, sunlight poured through holes in the ceiling. There were no magical rooms, no shifting corridors, just a skeleton of what the house once pretended to be. She walked through it. Each step kicked up dust, not dreams. No voices whispered, no doors appeared. At the front of the house was a desk, and on it, a typewriter, old, iron, waiting. She sat. There was one sheet of paper loaded in the carriage, blank. She reached for the keys, her fingers trembled, and she began to type. There once was a house that waited, and it still does.